Some stories are too terrifying to be fiction. Tonight, we dive into 5 real-life horror stories that will make you question reality. Keep the lights on. You might need them. Let's begin. Story 1. The Shadow in the Window. A woman named Emily had always felt safe in her small apartment until the night her cat started acting strangely. Every night at exactly 3 a.m., the cat would sit by the window, its fur bristling, growling at something unseen. At first, she brushed it off as an odd feline habit. But then she started noticing other things. The blinds in her kitchen would be slightly open in the morning when she was sure she had closed them. Her back door, which she always locked, was found unlocked more than once. She chalked it up to forgetfulness until the knocking started. At first, it was faint, a light tapping at the window. Then it grew bolder, slow, deliberate knocks that sent chills down her spine. She tried to convince herself it was just the wind or a loose branch, but deep down, she knew better. Something or someone was outside. One night, curiosity got the best of her. As the clock neared 3 a.m., she decided to stay awake and watch. The cat jumped onto the windowsill, its body stiffening, tail puffed in fear. Emily's heart pounded as she crept toward the window. Slowly, she reached for the curtain, pulling it back just an inch, enough to peek through. Her breath caught in her throat. There, just inches away, was a face staring back at her. Pale, motionless, eyes locked onto hers. The figure stood completely still. Only the slight fog of breath forming on the glass proved it was alive. Emily stumbled backward, gasping. She grabbed her phone, fumbling to dial 911. Her hands trembled as she pressed the call button. But when she dared to look again, the figure was gone. The police arrived within minutes. They searched the area, but there was no sign of an intruder. However, what they did find sent chills down Emily's spine. Footprints. Dozens of them, layered over each other, leading from the wooded area behind her building to her window. But that wasn't the worst part. The footprints weren't just outside. They were beneath her bedroom window, beneath her kitchen window, and beneath her front door. Someone had been circling her home, watching her, waiting. Story 2. The Disappearing Roommate. For months, Lisa had shared her dorm room with a girl named Rachel. They weren't best friends, but they got along well enough. Lisa would sometimes hear Rachel whispering on late-night phone calls, but she never pried. That changed when Lisa returned to campus after a weekend away. She expected to find Rachel asleep in her bed. Instead, the room was eerily empty. Rachel's bed was perfectly made, her closet stood open and bare, and her desk was completely clear. No books, no photos, not even a stray pen. It was as if she had never been there. Lisa frowned and pulled out her phone, texting Rachel, "Hey, did you move out?" The message failed to send. Confused, she went to their RA, only to receive a blank stare. "Rachel who?" Lisa's stomach dropped. "Rachel, my roommate," she insisted. But the RA shook her head. "You've been assigned a single dorm since the semester started, Lisa. You never had a roommate." Lisa's skin prickled. That couldn't be true. She had spoken to Rachel, shared meals with her, even borrowed her hairbrush once. She ran back to her room, digging through her phone for proof. No texts, no photos, no social media profiles. It was like Rachel had never existed. Frantic, Lisa called her parents, asking if they remembered her mentioning Rachel. "Lisa, honey," her mom said, her voice laced with concern. "You told us you were living alone." Lisa hung up, feeling like the walls around her were closing in. Who had she been living with, and why had she disappeared without a trace? Story 3. The 2 a.m. voicemail. A man named Tom had been struggling with the loss of his mother for months. It was a pain that never seemed to fade, especially when the holidays came around. One night, unable to sleep, he found himself scrolling through his phone, aimlessly trying to distract his mind. That's when he saw the voicemail notification. It was from his mom. His heart skipped a beat. She had passed away 6 months ago. Confused and a little fearful, Tom listened to the message. It was unmistakably her voice. Soft, comforting, just like he remembered. The message was brief. "Tom, I'm still here." A faint static noise followed. Then the call ended. Tom's hands shook as he checked the phone's call log, confirming it came from his mom's old number. His heart raced as he realized the phone line had been disconnected after her death. Panicked, Tom tried to reach the phone company, but there was no explanation for the call. It was as if the number was still somehow active. Desperate for answers, Tom decided to visit his mother's old house. When he walked through the door, he noticed something strange. Her favorite chair in the living room was rocking, as if someone had just been sitting there. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up as he approached it. He sat down in the chair and waited. That's when the phone rang again. It was from his mother's number once more. This time, the voice was quieter, more distant, and the message was chilling. "I'm not alone here, Tom." Story 4. The Whispering Doll. Olivia had always loved collecting old things, so when she found a vintage doll at a local thrift store, she knew she had to have it. It was a porcelain doll with glassy eyes that seemed almost lifelike. Her parents weren't thrilled about the purchase, but they let her have it. They placed it on a shelf in her room, thinking nothing more of it. But strange things started happening. At night, Olivia's parents would hear soft whispering coming from her room. At first, they assumed it was just her talking in her sleep, but when they checked, Olivia was always sound asleep, her eyes closed tight, her breath slow and steady. The whispers continued, growing clearer. It sounded like a voice, a woman's voice, speaking in hushed tones. "She belongs to me now," the voice would say, always repeating the same words. Terrified, her parents decided to investigate. They set up a recorder in Olivia's room overnight. When they played it back, they could hear the whispers clearer than ever. "She belongs to me now." The chilling word sent a cold shiver down their spines. And yet, every time they tried to move the doll, it would always end up back in its original place on the shelf. Soon, Olivia became withdrawn, speaking less and less, almost as if she was under some sort of spell. Her parents began to notice small things. Olivia would sometimes stare at the doll for hours, never blinking, as if mesmerized. It was clear that the doll wasn't just a toy. It was something much darker. Story 5. The Man Under the Bed. Lily had always been a heavy sleeper, but something about this particular night made her uneasy. She had just returned from a late shift at her job and collapsed onto her bed, exhausted. The apartment was dark and quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator in the next room. Half asleep, Lily reached down to grab her phone from under the bed. But as her hand brushed the cold floor, she felt someone, grab her wrist. Her blood ran cold as a rough hand clasped around hers. With a scream, she yanked her hand back and bolted out of bed, her heart racing. She ran to the door, stumbling as she fumbled for her keys. Panic consumed her as she tried to make her way out of the apartment. When the police arrived, they found a man hiding underneath the bed, barely breathing. He had been there for days, silently watching Lily sleep, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. He was armed with a knife and appeared to have been preparing to make his move when she reached under the bed. The authorities later discovered that the man had been living in the building for weeks, unnoticed by everyone, until he had made his home underneath Lily's bed. Lily, now terrified, would never feel safe again. She couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still watching her, lurking just out of sight. The thought that he had been so close, so incredibly close, was enough to send a chill down anyone's spine. What if she had been too late to escape? Reality is often scarier than fiction. Which of these stories disturbed you the most? Let us know in the comments. And if you hear a noise tonight, maybe don't check. Just stay safe.